And I think that's the way forward. I think most organizations will move towards this. With only one tweak, which if I may add here, by the way, Bharat, I see Open Telemetry because a lot of people contributed towards this, and they tried to make it a lot more horizontal. The amount of data it throws needs to be kind of contained at some place,
right?
And that is where some of the work has to happen. But what I think OpenTelemetry is allowing users, the customers, to really do is to be able to move from one vendor specific technology to the other seamlessly.
Right.
In fact, as you probably already know, you can point to a multiple different collectors at the same time with OpenTelemetry. That means if you just want to, before making a decision, you just want to make sure that which collector makes sense, which backend technologies make sense, you can just use multiple at the same time and compare the results.
Right.
So I think this is making a lot more sense for customers. This is maturing also, with the only one caveat is that people should actually, rather two feedback. One, technology leaders should start implementing it in the design phase and shift left. And the other is look at what is meaningful to you in the entire open hotel landscape. So just for example, if you don't want all the traces, don't take all the traces.
Right.
You just don't have to just get bombarded with so much of data. Just take what is meaningful to you. But this is a lovely technology. I think this is going by use, and I think that's the future.
Hi, welcome to a new episode of Observability Talk. I am very excited to talk to Amit in today's podcast. Amit is a founder of Visaris.com, which has been started with a vision to accelerate observability transformation for enterprise customers. Amit has more than 2 decades of experience in sales and customer-facing roles at global observability companies like Rakuten, AppDynamics, and CA. Amit has seen the technology evolution from reactive monitoring to highly proactive observability. He has developed a strong technical understanding of this domain and has worked with most of the open source observability tools. He has a unique perspective on customer pain point and what customer needs. Hi, Amit. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. We are really very excited to talk to you about observability.
Hey, Bharat, thank you. I'm equally excited too. This is a domain which is very close to my heart, and I would love to see if I can contribute to your podcast. And by the way, I've watched quite a few of them. I love the format. So yeah, let's play along.
Thank you so much, Amit, for the feedback. As we discussed, right, that we basically started doing this to create some sort of awareness about observability, as well as tell people from different angles how observability really matters, right? Coming to my first question, see, you have been in this space for more than a decade, right? And you have been seeing this evolving from a highly reactive metric-based monitoring, right? And which was maybe 10 years back, to a full stack observability now. Can you talk about how this space has evolved over time? And you have seen it from the front row.
Yeah, thank you. Bharat, this is probably the most important question that one has to really look at and address. If you look back few years back, and especially the complexity that we were seeing in the IT infrastructure, managing the IT infrastructure applications, etc., were not that much. We did not have the speed of, in a way, digital users as much. We did not have the speed of development and innovation as much as we see now. And we did not have a digital infrastructure readiness at that point of time. But what it brought along was the complexity, right? I witnessed, by the way, when we were moving from that bare metal server architecture to to virtualization, the mass virtualization or x86 virtualization. And then suddenly microservices containerization came in,
Right.
and the Kubernetes changed the world. So at one side, you are breaking those silos, but at the same time, you're also creating a lot of connection, which can fail it at any given point of time. So earlier, one monolithic system, everything was written there. The
Right.
communication was not really that big of a problem. Now you
Right.
have so much problem. So that was one part. The other is the digital dependence that has caused this, becoming more proactive. Earlier, people could wait for a few days to just get the service running, and then it got kind of reduced to hours and then minutes, and now people don't wait for seconds also. So if something is loading and I just switch to something else, is just how the new generation is, or the digital users are. So you got to be proactive. If you're a business owner and if you're running a business which is serving it through digital, which eventually everyone is, by the way, um, you will have to be proactive. You can't really stay on reactive. But here there are fundamental evolution which also have happened. Is that a lot of possibilities came along.
Right.
Earlier, it wasn't really possible to get all the information that you were seeking to become proactive at those days, 1.5, 2 decades back. Now you have tools, you have solutions, you have pre-built signals or probes that can help you understand the not only the health of your systems, which used to be a reactive method, but also on a Ziffy, just to just link it from one to the other and trace it to a root cause and quickly act upon that.
Right.
Right. So this has become a really, really interesting time when things are now moving from reactive, actually moved already from reactive to now proactive, um, and in a way prescriptive also, to an extent.
Right.
And I see the future evolving a lot more towards automatic, or a world where we what there used to be a concept called no ops,
Yes.
eventually possibly leading towards that. I don't know how, but yeah, I mean there are a lot of discussions and thoughts around that as well.
Very interesting times, Amit, and really thank you for coming to the podcast to just explain this part itself, that how you have seen it evolving from one end to another end. See, early on, when I was talking to some of the SREs and solution architects or technical architects and so on, right? They were looking at it more from application architecture evolution. Like you said, right, that we had a monolithic, then it becomes a SOA sort of architecture, then it becomes a microservices. Now people are mixing it with serverless architectures and so on, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Um, one of the challenge they were facing, which I think you can put a little bit more lights on, uh, are the monitoring bit, right? While it was so easy to monitor a monolithic because everything is within a single application, uh, what changes you have seen from monitoring a monolithic, which is like metric based or agent based or so on, right, to a serverless, which is a cloud native or microservices architecture, which is a cloud native architecture. And then there are a lot of customers which are still some part hybrid, some part fully on premise, some parts, some people are already fully cloud native. So, can you give a mix of like how people are looking at monitoring some of these application which has evolved like this?
Yeah, I think this is where I was coming to from a complexity standpoint. So what changed? And by the way, the cloud definition definitely has changed quite a bit. But
Right.
if you go back to about a couple of decades, and you would see there were cloud providers which were providing you bare metal as a service sort of stuff,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Where they used to take care of monitoring bits and pieces, and you deploy your workloads, etc. The interesting point which has happened, by the way, in between is the evolution of multi-cloud hybrid environments and businesses' inability to really transform fully to just one type of infrastructure. What we miss nowadays, and by the way, this is probably one perspective that I've seen most of the people struggle with, is that when it comes to SRE, they believe that SRE is only about application availability. It is not. It is about the holistic digital service availability. And
Correct.
that the foundation for that is also the digital infrastructure. And whether it is on-premise or cloud or a server less, all of that has to be um, learned or monitored to see how your applications are performing, and then the linkage. The other thing which has happened, by the way, Bharat, is um, the when applications evolved from monolith to it became microservices architecture and serverless. Your ability as an SRE to do things beyond is very little.
Right.
Most of the time, what you do is you restart your files and you change your YAML, and you take some API calls from your monolith, your serverless functions. All of that is kind of now, if you have to fix it, and if you're an SRE, that means you have to rely a lot more signals which are cross signals. So you'll have to look at your application signals, but you'll also have to look at how your infrastructure is behaving or providing the context, and then you should be able to take the action based on that.
Right.
So importance of monitoring has become too much now. Earlier, if you were just let's say a monitoring person, you were only required to know. Our people were very domain centric or specific. I'm a storage monitoring person. I'm a database monitoring person. I'm a server monitoring,
Correct.
those kind of people, or I'm an application monitoring. That boundary is broken now. SRE
Right.
has to know everything end to end
Right.
in order to make sure that the applications are running, functioning. That means the monitoring and the tools, whatever those are supporting, has to be intuitive enough, simple enough for SRE to just consume it.
Right.
And by the way, in SRE practice, tools are just a part. They have to make sure this is running. So that means a tool should not create a burden on them. It should create a method or way for them to act appropriately. That means this is more like a source of truth that they can just look at and take their actions, so that their digital infrastructure, digital applications, and digital services are up and running all the time.
Very, very true, Amit. One of the thing which I will definitely follow up on to give you a view, like you said, monitoring is becoming very critical. So, in couple of customer environment, most of these customers have the criticality of their application. So they will say that there are 10 platinum application, 10, 15 gold application, and then like that, right? So earlier we were used to, I mean, our monitoring platform used to come in maybe a bronze or or something which is very I mean, not so critical, right? But for last 2 years, we are seeing that our application is also coming up to gold and platinum, because they are now realizing what you rightly said, right? That if I do not have this monitoring, then I am completely blind. I am not even having a view into my how my applications are working, how my Kubernetes cluster is performing, or how my serverless function is performing, right? So the monitoring is actually becoming quite critical for all these digital first sort of businesses, right?
I
Um,
have another point to add, by the way, Bharat,
yeah, yeah, please.
just on this topic. I generally explain this when I explain this to people. This is how I explain. I say, you know, building an application is the process of, it is very similar to building a house. You'll take, that painful 1-2 years to build your house the way you want, right?
Right,
But eventually you'll have to manage and maintain that property for decades, 20-30 years, when you start living in.
right,
So if you do not plan where your water tap is, or the pipeline is going, or your electrical fittings are going. And if you do not maintain that, you can't live in that house. And you cannot be in forever building mode. You will have to settle down someday. In my opinion, I think that we have seen in last couple of years, or maybe 5-7 years, a lot of digital transformations have happened that led to a lot of development of applications and critical applications on a customer side.
Right.
But that building phase is now getting over. You can't really keep building every single day, right? You'll have to utilize that. Now, when you want to utilize this, you'll have to maintain it. And maintenance has to be done in such way that it does not break your systems,
Right.
your applications, your user experiences. So I guess this is where the importance of monitoring comes in.
Right.
You build a house, put some money, you will realize that maintaining cost a lot of money.
Right.
That's the used good old saying of 80% money goes into um, keeping the lights on. So that's where we probably will be heading to.
Right. Right. Very true. We talked about these various tools, right? One of the thing which basically have been making news for last few years is Open Telemetry, right? It's sort of a standard from CNCF, and they basically have a standard tracing framework, which also have metrics and log collection, which is currently being touted as something like an enterprise wide tool, which can be completely vendor independent. Uh, can you tell us a little bit more about what your experience has been with Open Telemetry and how you have been using it for your customers?
Um, so before I answer this question, let me just clear my stand on this. Okay. I think the way forward is Open Telemetry for everyone, but a tweaked version. In my belief, and it's been really, really long time that CTOs and the technology officers have only focused on building the application and never built a reliability component as part of their, design.
Right. Right.
So that shift left did not happen. And when I speak to a lot of leaders and the IT leaders, especially CIOs, whose jobs are to maintain those digital infrastructure once they are built for a long time, this is their primary concern, that what they receive as their application does not have the proper reliability hook points or information available.
Right.
Open telemetry, and hence you will have to probably go to a vendor and get logged in with their technology to just collect the same information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really thankful to CNCF, by the way, for that matter, to come up with Open Telemetry as a standard to collect all these data. But and I think that's the way forward. I think most organizations will move towards this with only one tweak, which if I may add here, by the way, Bharat.
Mm-hmm.
I see Open Telemetry because a lot of people contributed towards this, and they tried to make it a lot more horizontal. The amount of data it throws needs to be kind of contained at some place,
Right.
and that is where some of the work has to happen. But what I think Open Telemetry is allowing users, the customers, to really do is to be able to move from one vendor specific technology to the other seamlessly.
Right.
In fact, as you probably already know, you can point to a multiple different collectors at the same time with Open Telemetry. That means if you just want to, before making a decision, if you just want to make sure that which collector makes sense, which backend technologies make sense, you can just use multiple at the same time and compare the results.
Right.
So I think this is making a lot more sense for customers. This is maturing also, with the only one caveat is that people should actually, rather, two feedback. One, technology leaders should start implementing it in the design phase and shift left. And the other is look at what is meaningful to you in the entire open hotel landscape. So just for example, if you don't want all the traces, don't take all the traces.
Right.
You just don't have to just get bombarded with so much of data. Just take what is meaningful to you. But this is a lovely technology. I think this is going by use, and I think that's the future.
Right. I mean, I completely agree. In fact, we also adopted Hotel in VuNet to bring in the visibility into distributed tracing and tracing for applications, right, and services. Uh, One thing which I really liked about what you said on the shift left part, I was talking to one of the SREs, and he was very, very clear in terms of, like you said, right, that reliability is usually an afterthought. Once the application development is already done, now people start thinking, how do I make it reliable? So he started with the very simple statement: reliability is a feature, which is a must feature for your application. You should not treat it as something which basically will come in future and then you can live with it, right? So that was something very interesting. And then the whole lift shift left, as well as we started calling it embedded observability, that the thought process of how you will monitor or how will you observe your application, whether it is logs or traces or distribution of services or infrastructure and so on, it has to start from day zero, right?
Correct.
And OTel actually is very, very useful because you really don't need to put any money or buy any licenses, and then you can actually start from day zero, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and it also makes sure that you are having a application which is already instrumented, as well as is quite vendor independent, like you talked about, right? So there is no issue even if you are moving from, let's say, UAT to production, and you can actually move it with the hotel instrumented agent as well, and start monitoring it from day one, right?
Yeah.
With this on tip topic, a lot of time, right? Most of these tech leads or tech architects are really worried about their application performance if they use an intrusive APM agent, right? This is something which we have heard a lot from some of our customers who have been using certain APM tools, and were insisting to us that is there any way where you can actually monitor application performance non-intrusively, right? And this I'm talking about sometime 8 to 10 years back, and that's when we came up with an option which we proposed to them, that maybe we should use log-based uh, application performance monitoring. Though it is not fully software performance, it is at least your application which is you are using it for transactions. So we will provide you sort of a transaction performance monitoring using logs. So that's what one of the option. But very recently, a new technology called eBPF has come up, and a lot of people are talking very good things about this, and then how this is non-intrusive in nature, and then you can still observe your applications, transactions, or API calls, and so on, right? Can you talk about a bit about eBPF? Because I saw some of your posts coming on LinkedIn about eBPF. So I was having this in my mind that I will definitely ask you this. Can you talk a bit about it? Yeah, what is this and why it is gaining popularity?
Why you already have answered, by the way, why it is. Look, OpenTel or tracing is intrusive, and it will have a lot of instrumentation headache also. You'll have to go down to your application, understand your application, hook it there, and it will throw a lot of data. And a lot of that um, is not bad. It's just that it is too much. It is overwhelming with
Right.
the open telemetry. Whereas most of the places, especially high transaction places, people don't have time to really look for everything. eBPF is making it possible. Now, eBPF as the technology, and by the way, this existed for some time,
Yeah.
but primarily in the space of Kubernetes, network and security components. Most of the virtual networks or SDNs function on this. Telecom uses it. But the challenge earlier was the payload capacity, what it was supporting. Now it supports a lot more. And then that means you can take a lot of data, which is your system centric from observability standpoint, and take system specific logs and put it back, system specific trace. And one interesting thing is about the profiler, so it can capture the profiler.
Right.
So interestingly, all four golden signals, what we call it, melt, right? And the metrics, events, logs, and traces across network, infrastructure, to some extent the application or kernel level applications, and security. So those four areas it covers pretty well. And I go a little bit deeper into this and why it is gaining popularity. If you look at it, eBPF, what it has made possible is that you now are abstracted from your application. That means eBPF programs can run straight on your operating system or on a kernel.
Right.
Okay. That means you don't have to know your applications and you don't, or application types, and you don't have to instrument anything on that. Also, because it is near to kernel, and it is a kernel space program, it will understand what is being executed, what calls are coming in, what is going there. And if you're able to instrument what we call it a hook point from your application transaction or pod transactions to your kernel or to your executions, then you should be able to create a first level of trace automatically there in eBPF.
Okay.
So that way you already get a lot of data which most of the SREs can automatically rely upon. For a async environment, this is amazing tool, I must tell you, because then you're anyway not looking at distributed tracing. There is no information on a context going on. But for most of the other reason why I think it is gaining popularity is because of the simplicity what it offers. The data is very defined. That means your collector can be easier, and it also has a lot lesser space requirement. So when it runs, it is you can simply say that it is 1/4, 1/5 of most of the application agents, what it consumes. It provides you system level information, and it provides you first level of application related information also. Some logs, profiling, and some traces, so that you can just build upon this. So I think eBPF is gaining a lot of popularity because of this. It's a lightweight, and it is agnostic.
Right.
But there will be some challenge also if somebody is willing to take that. eBPF is a kernel space program, and that means it has to be instrumented carefully. So choose your technology carefully, and also it is also difficult to so it is not as easy in terms of it is not shift left technology per se.
Right.
It has to it will be done during the deployment. So in a way, lightweight, very easy to instrument, very easy to get the data, but it is not necessarily pre-production building thought process. It's mostly about the systems management.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I was reading up somewhere. So this eBPF currently is available only on Linux platform, right? I mean, from the OS perspective. So that limitation.
Yes, it is currently available on Linux. Windows, I think Windows Server 19 onwards, there have been some efforts on building up a translator. So the way it works is their eBPF programs are current, as I said, kernel programs, so that you have to have the access. Windows does not offer that. So yes, you're right. It is currently mostly on Linux and Unix. But I'm assuming that with the newer versions of Windows coming out, as they are also committing themselves to Cilium and to eBPF projects. Cilium, by the way, manages like CNCF manages those. Cilium manages these programs for development of eBPF. I think they have some understanding with Microsoft on exposing some metric, not the entire access, but some excess, which can provide the hook points. So the way it works on the eBPF is that there are hook points which can be exposed, and you can then hook your eBPF program instead of directly accessing the kernel, because kernel does not allow that, um, even in the Linux also. So
Okay.
I think Windows, Microsoft is making that effort.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. You talked about something about async calls. Can you elaborate a bit on it? Because see, when you come from the APM word, right?
Yeah.
APM word do the or distributed tracing also from that perspective will actually be able to monitor the sync calls very well, because then they know
Yeah.
that okay, a request has come and a response has gone back. But async calls usually is a challenge for those tools. So how is eBPF able to solve that challenge?
No, it is not. It's not about solve. So, by the way, in OpenTelemetry, you can solve async by putting up context propagations, etc. And so look at the foundation of eBPF. So eBPF runs on the node, or with every node in a cluster.
Mm-hmm.
This is natively Kubernetes cloud native technology for observing behavior and performances. So what it does is that it looks at every pod in their communication, and it will take the information and will. So those connections are pod to pod connections or deployment to deployment connections are all TCP connections. So
Okay.
it will read that and it will provide you one label. Now what you can do is that you can instrument Open Telemetry on top of this to get further distributed tracing. For async, um, in both cases, in case of pure play OpenTelemetry or combination of eBPF and OpenTelemetry, you'll have to do the context propagation in
Okay.
order to see the entire trace.
Okay. Okay. So this would be something like a trace ID or something is passed between the two, and then okay, to correlate.
Yeah,
Okay.
to correlate that, correct.
Okay. Okay. Uh, Second thing is that somewhere I was reading that this eBPF applications are very similar to this Linux modules, kernel modules.
Yes.
But the only difference is that maybe eBPF provides much more flexibility and you can write a full program, while kernel module actually is very, very fixed or static.
No. So I'll explain as the way it works is that you have eBPF programs that runs on a kernel level or kernel space.
Right.
Okay. Now eBPF programs uses kernel to directly execute it.
Right.
Most kernels don't allow.
Huh.
So what you do, you take some Cilium libraries,
Okay.
which create, what they do is that Cilium has already written some libraries on the kernel, and they
Mhm.
expose the hook points.
Okay.
So your eBPF programs use that hook point to capture that data and
Right.
send you that information.
Okay.
So that makes it easier. They are Cilium program has become part of, and they are also, by the way, eBPF programs only, but
Right.
they have become part of the kernel foundation itself.
Right.
So if you and I write a program directly capturing the information, we'll have to do a lot of. So we'll have to recompile a kernel, and put our programs there. So you can write, it will run like a module, but most cases you wouldn't want to do that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. It's just that it is too much to work.
Okay. So just to summarize, eBPF, non-intrusive, much more lightweight, can be done quickly. It's just that you need to get things right in terms of kernel module or kernel application or whatever eBPF application you're writing, right? So other than that,
That is correct.
that is why
Yeah,
it is
and
used.
absolutely, and you just have to be careful on what you're capturing,
Yeah.
because it is dual edge, by the way. So what also it allows, eBPF is a two-way. Uh, it can execute something which can control your kernel.
Right.
Okay, and that is where it is being used in security domain also quite a lot.
Okay.
So on the runtime. So yeah,
It's just
be careful.
they did somewhere that they were basically using this to configure IPv6 headers. For
Initially, it started like that,
yeah,
the BPF.
right, right. Interesting. Uh, see this, we basically talked about multiple things. One more thing I wanted to add to the mix of things: APM, full stack observability, and AI ops. Uh, how do you, because there are a lot of overlaps when we talk about full stack observability, it does include APM. When you talk about AI ops, if you look at what Gartner sort of created as a definition, it also put NPM, APM, infra monitoring, and automation and AI in the middle, and so on, right? So, how do you see some of these things, and how it mature in custom environment? Like we talked about reactive, proactive. You also talked about prescriptive and maybe automating, right? Then AI ops actually, maybe, do you think is
Automatic.
the North Star sort of thing for people now?
Um, One should aspire for, yes. North Star, I would still say, SRE metrics,
Right.
the reliability. Um, but the interesting point here, Bharat, on this, APM is foundational. So you'll need it
Yes.
because there are critical applications. Ultimately, that is earning your revenue. Most companies, and by the way, I don't know which company it is not. So I'll just get to that. Um, Full stack is required. Full stack is required because the world has moved now. The IT world has moved from a monolith now to hybrid, to
Right.
cloud native, to Kubernetes, etc., etc. So if you don't understand your underlying infrastructure, you wouldn't really know. And by the way, there are a lot of other complications in terms of different type of browser, different type of accesses and mobile devices, etc. So that means you'll have to know end user performances also.
Right.
And you'll have to have a ability to stitch it to what we call it here, user journey based views.
Right.
Um, Although the consumers are different, in my opinion, within the organization for the data that you will be capturing, but full stack allows you to see that in a context.
Right.
So that is where most organizations are today. And that, as you said, that includes your the critical components of network, which is allowing you to look at the pod to pod communication, server to server communications, etc. Your performance of infrastructure, performance of your application, faults of your application, traceability, logs, etc., etc. So this makes a right mix of full stack. Um, the AI ops side is something which is, I mean, imagine what we are talking about here, right, Bharat? Imagine full stack in a true world where the amount of data, like terabytes of data getting generated every day.
Right.
How is it possible for that data to be analyzed by SREs? If you really want to make your decision tomorrow, right?
Right.
And if your business really is about, understanding that all weather patterns and forecasting it for tomorrow, humanly impossible. That means you'll have to have AI ops. But here is what my take, and this is only my take, okay? This is not for every organization. And this also depends on different maturity level, right? So
Right.
one shouldn't really rush for just making it AI ops enabled, but use some AI modules. Don't have to do entire AI ops. Entire AI ops has got a lot of components to it.
Right.
Let's say if you're looking at a pattern matching, let's say you're able to create a baseline compare against it.
Right.
Okay, those kind of, maybe some causation, maybe some correlation, those kind of AI functionalities within your data make sense for most organization.
Mm-hmm.
For some which depend on high volume retail, e-commerce, etc., where they need a prediction for tomorrow also, from that ops you make a AI ops full-fledged system where you have a early warning system, you have a forecasting system, etc. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. Why would you be really worried about what your performance will be in next 6 hours, um, or how dynamic that environment will have to be?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see banks also going through that. I mean, probably Flipkart and those kind of e-commerce portals, when the sale happen, etc., etc., they want those
Right.
forecasting capabilities and early warning systems. But most people, AI, of course, but those as a module, AIOps as a plethora. I mean, you shouldn't really just rush for it in a FOMO,
Right.
just thinking that the world is ending tomorrow.
Correct.
Make your house in order first. Understand your business metric. I love what you guys do. If you don't have the business metric, what is the point of having tomorrow? You know, so you'll have to have that first, and then look at the volume, see what your smaller modules can't do, and then look at that. On this specific point, by the way, I don't know if you have a question on this or not, Bharat, but there are a lot of possibilities of using those, the newer age AI applications and LLMs and, um, GPT kind of AI. I guess I'm guessing that you probably would have a question on this.
Definitely.
So if that is there, then I'll just park it. But there are applicabilities around this.
No. So definitely, I mean, there are a lot of different things happening with AI itself, and this Gen AI is brought in new type of possibilities, right? And we will definitely discuss that, because that is one of the topic which I also want to understand from you. You being in the market, talking to a lot of customers, where do you see we are going? So you talked about, right, that APM to full stack observability is currently happening. Now from here, where do we go and how we go? We will talk about that, right? But before that, see, uh, you have founded a company which basically is looking at accelerating observability transformation for enterprises, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to understand from you, what are the top three challenges you see with enterprises today in adopting an observability platform? Uh, can you talk about, like, whatever you would be talking to a lot of customers? What exactly comes up?
First and foremost, what I say is the mindset. They are still living in that reactive world, as you were talking about it, right? And most of the organizations have this is afterthought. Why should I do this? I'm already using some legacy application from, I don't want to name those companies, but or the products. So, I have EMS, I have NMS, those kind of things, right? So, not that they are wrong, they probably are serving some purpose, but that won't lead you to, next phase of being proactive for your organization, right? So I think the first thing that most customers and most CIOs say that the reliability is not in their design. And that is what I think the CTOs are to be honestly blamed for this. They've never thought about it, and they still don't. So I think the first and foremost is that how do you change the mindset? And it is not about tool. It is about the entire, what will happen if my code goes into production? They'll have to think about that. They'll
Right.
have to write those, what signals should one, SRE use to do what, those kind of things. That is not happening. So the first and foremost is that. The second is the bigger problem. I think a lot of vendors have been culprit of this, is that locking customers beautifully in a cage, so that the technology, that kind of created a lot of fatigue in a customer's environment.
Right.
So if you really ask a customer which is using, it's $1 billion company's product in observability, their first challenge will be, how do I migrate? I have so much of dependency.
Right.
There are agent movement. What will I do in that blackout time? How
Mhm.
will I get data? All
Mhm.
that stuff. So
Right.
that portability and vendor locking is a massive problem. I think that is another. So I think this has to go through one transformation to just move entire customer, and that can only happen when CTOs start allowing and taking newer stuff on Open Telemetry or their own, whatever version they want to build. Build a telemetry. This is what I'm saying. Build telemetry from the day one, and compatible with Open Telemetry standards, and then anybody can use. And then your CIO does not have to really be on ransom on some product, simply put. So that is one. This is the second point, the vendor lock-in, the challenge that we face. And the
Right.
third one is the skill set gap. I think, Bharat, there is a massive need of what we call it, operational people. If everyone is building, who's maintaining?
Right.
And who's equipped to, right? So essentially, if you see the project creeps happening, is happening because the operational people are sucking up the innovators and development people because things break, right? So you'll have to really go back to the same engineer and developer and understand what really has happened. So I think you need to have this is a lot to do with skill set issues, skill set gap, and it's not only about instrumenting your APM or tools or all different stuff. Is about the SRE as a practice and a mindset.
Right.
So I think three top challenges, in my opinion. I'm just summarizing it. The first one is shift left, which still has not happened, and I think this should happen. The second is moving to a vendor agnostic technology, and third one is building a capacity for SREs. Yeah. So these top.
No, I think the first one, I think again very important. The way you explained it, right? I was just recalling one of my conversations with one of the CIO. Maybe we will be doing a podcast with him very soon about the culture of organization for observability. Right? Is there a culture already in place or not, or is CIO or IT heads or everybody is working towards creating such a culture, right? Because uh, if you do not have how much ever tools you put, whatever things you do, right, maybe it still not work, right? So
You will continue to just monitor.
yeah,
It's just like I'm monitoring it.
yes,
You will never become a site reliability engineering
right,
or SRE focused organization. You can't be, because SRE focused organization is looking at how do I make sure the digital services which are being delivered are reliable and are exceeding the expectation every day.
right.
That can only happen when you build that thought process, and that starts from shifting left. Go to vendor neutral, make it agnostic.
Right. So, just extending this to the top three challenges you see, if you have to advise a customer on their observability journey, let's say somebody is trying to figure out how do they do, maybe they are doing a reactive monitoring today, but they want to go on this observability journey. What could be the roadmap and typical things which you will basically suggest or advise for an observability solution? uh, in the current context, how we will go about, how they should go about doing on this journey.
I'm radical on this. I must tell you this, Bharat. Um, I think I think one shouldn't get into FOMO first. Um,
Right.
I think a lot of hype is there around observability. One should look at what exactly do they need. And I'll tell you two different customers and their needs I have recently encountered. One customer, and when I looked at that, and they really wanted the world's top solution. Um, and when I really looked at their need, was only the metric that they needed. Only the metric. Did you not? I mean, some trace, yes, but they were mostly on Kubernetes, mostly pods, um, async mostly. I mean, most of these are SPAs going to payment gateways, etc., etc. What will you do there,
Right.
right? With having so much of trace and those stuff. That is where I think maybe eBPF works very well.
Right.
And mostly metrics and events and logs, of course. Not too much of trace. But then there is just contrary to that customer, there was a customer which has, which is in banking environment, has the entire journey, multi-page journey, and anything breaks at one point, breaks the entire revenue.
Right.
That is where you need a trace also. And also they have hybrid, majority is on premise. You can't beat it. You can't really do the modern way.
Right.
So you'll have to have that mix. So my point is that don't just do it because somebody said or you found a better tool or just paying for it. Do it thoughtfully. Is not that you just have money you can spend anywhere.
Right.
The other thing is about, once you have the tool, you also should look at, and Bharat, I'm genuinely saying this, and I've seen most of these failing by the way observability journey here in India,
Mhm.
is because most of the time you buy a tool, but you don't work with the vendor. They don't work like a partner, right? If you don't work like a partner, these tools are not for one day. Your application is changing. This is pretty intrusive, right? So one has to change according to this also.
Right.
I mean, imagine you are one of the customer in 10,000 customers list of a world's, top product, one of the top product. How will they treat your smaller requirement of, a new Rust-based application with certain features that you want now as per your telemetry
Right.
requirement?
Right.
You will just go around nuts, right? And this exactly what happens. So here is what I also say, that value of observability keep diminishing
Mhm.
month by month. And one reason is because you still buy tool. You don't take partners help, or you don't work with your OEMs as a partner, or
Mhm.
don't partner them with your journey. So you'll
Right.
have to go there. You'll have to cross that bridge and have to make sure that your communication is there with them.
Mhm.
You enable them, they enable you. But for that, you need to look for a partner, not look for a vendor, which is we just shipping you a product and doesn't care of your success.
Right. Right. So, just to build on what you just said, right, that this is something which we get to hear from a lot of our customers, that they are using some of these very large OEM products, but it has not been implemented correctly. And that has also happened, I believe, because the partner did not had enough skilled people or expert people, right? And obviously, the OEM was not into the implementation part at all, right? And there is a
I'll
gap.
tell you one example. I'll
Okay.
tell you two examples, very interesting. One side I've seen, by the way, pretty much all these places, the large companies, the observability projects, start with a real enthusiasm, a super enthusiasm, and then it starts declining, and then goes flat. But I know quite couple of customers, and I've seen them using observability, um, you know, like really, really sustained uses. And
Okay.
and one thing I found common with both of these customers, that teams there were really focused on reliability,
Mm.
and they understood they only took what they needed or what they could chew in a way,
Right.
and they only worked with that. Forget about the large OEM or a smaller OEM discussion right now.
Right.
But they looked at that and they looked at why they needed it. And as long as this is, fulfilling their needs.
Mm. Mm.
So I've seen those implementation of, unfortunately, I can't name them because I did not really take the permission, but I love those teams.
Right.
Um, and, a- and, and their uses, even, I've been associated with them for about 8, 9 years, and a friendly relationship, not a business relationship anymore. But I've seen them using those tools sustainably for now. In fact, they have been just renewing instead of moving to the other tool, which is also a good thing because they know what they exactly want. So if somebody is just taking a path right now, I think I'll suggest don't get into FOMO. World is not ending. Make your real use cases clear to you. um, People can sell it different ways, but I think what is important is your use case
So that is
for your
very,
requirement.
very good advice, because a lot of time people, if you look at RFPs, right? I mean, you will see almost anything and everything which they, even they do not want it, it would be there in the RFP, right? So,
Yeah.
what I really liked what you're saying is that you need to create a journey, maturity journey for yourself, and then
Yeah.
take it step by step, what is important or critical for you, and then get that implemented, and then move on to really yield
Yeah.
to it correctly. Very interesting. Uh, Just switching gears a bit, so you have been talking to a lot of customers, partners, vendors, OEMs, and so on, right? Uh, I just wanted some sort of market intelligence in terms of what exactly people are thinking, what are their actual pain points, and what do they expect from observability as the technology?
And by the way, a lot of this is a myth, by the way, that one knows, but I can only share what I hear from market. Okay.
Yes, yes.
One thing is very interesting, which is coming up, Bharat, is pretty much all IT leaders now, when I talk to, they have this tools fatigue.
Right.
And I think we have reached to that stage because of the digital transformation push that we saw in last few years. And most of that were in building phases, right? So we were in building, 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 building. And
Right.
for every single thing, just, you needed something and you just created one piece of it and you start. So there's a tools fatigue, and they don't have enough people to deal with these things. So
Mhm.
one feedback that I keep hearing from people now is that they say, "Don't sell me tool, um,
Right.
or not anymore." Yeah. Tell me the outcome, sell me the outcome, sell me, um, you know, um, in a way, solution to my problem. Um, don't dump your stuff on me. And I think there was the mad rush few years back when people were just buying left, right, center on these things. They just bought everything, whether it fits their need or does not. Now
Mhm.
people have become conscious, both reasons, because of cost and also because of usability. As I said, the average utilization of tool in the capacity or capability per se is not more than 30% in any organization, observability tool,
Right.
except few maybe. So I think what they're saying is that, come work with me, take the ownership, put your skin in the game, be my partner in this journey, and help me reach there. Um, so that is the first and foremost stuff. The second is that, there was a lot of discussion around, move to, um, how you are different, and and people used to just pull up that feature list. They don't care anymore. I've seen pretty much all of them. They say, we don't care. My journey is different. And I was talking to one of these streaming companies,
Mhm.
IT leader, by the way.
Mhm.
Um, and what I loved about it, he said, look, yes, I implemented a lot of these tools. It's just because of, the hygiene factor. But my problem never got solved on, if something goes wrong at some point of time, how do I get the result right? So
Exactly.
again, remains the mystery, and I have to end up, restarting few things to just get it back. So I think the people are looking for, again, just look at my problem, solve my problem, I'll pay for you. However small you are, however big you are.
Correct.
And I think eventually people are now have come to a conclusion that brands don't matter as much.
Right.
And that is the reason I think some of the leading analysts, the so-called analysts, are facing the heat now, that people are not taking them seriously as well. But yeah, I mean, this is the first feedback that I'm getting. The second is that newer technology adoption. So people always wanted to go for non-intrusive because it was not there. And that is the reason why eBPF you see a lot more. This third is, of course, vendor neutrality. So I think the feedback is coming up from pretty much every quarters that we want to move. Unfortunately, they are not moving shift left. They want the vendors only to support.
Right.
But essentially, this becomes like vendor comes and installs the OpenTelemetry and makes their own OpenTelemetry version
Right.
to kind of hook it a little bit. But yeah, I think that is also happening some bit. What they are asking, they are, as I said, more solution-oriented approach.
Right.
Um, the neck in the game, as a partner, or shoulder it as a partner. And again, don't sell me a tool. And that's, I think, big no-no right now.
Right. Right. No, I think I am sold on all the 3 points, and I think some of our interactions are also leading to some of these things where um, they have started taking much more view into how they observe these applications, and obviously they want their problems to be solved now. I mean, they are not looking at, like
Yeah.
you rightly said, right, that they're not looking at, okay, whether you have this feature or that feature. I have this
Yeah.
problem. Can you solve this? Right, whichever way
It's correct.
you do it. Right.
Yeah.
So while customer expectations are changing a bit, how do you see these observability platforms or tools evolving? So one is obviously people are going towards CNCF, open telemetry, open source open telemetry, vendor agnostic, and some of those things are happening. But is there any other evaluation you see for observability tools?
Yeah, I think it is a multi-directional evolution happening at this point of time on observability space, and especially tooling space. So I'll just bring it back to a tool,
Mhm.
the vendor side of it.
Right.
So there are two, three different dimensions which are now coming up. One dimension, which is about, bring more and more signal towards it,
Right.
so that your SRE will become much more equipped.
Mm.
And obviously a natural extension to that, build more and more AI capabilities, etc. So
Right.
that, you get a lot more within the same platform. You can call it a unification. And I think it is a good move. One way is because, you're uh, enabling your team, and, bringing your team up to the speed becomes much quicker in a way. And the other evolution that I'm seeing is also going light. So some of them are checking their load and experimenting with the smaller components of their own. A lot of acquisitions are also happening towards or within this domain. So
Okay.
one side, if you look at it, I think there is also one thought that why to have a massive one solution all type of situation. Let's have more modular approaches, which
Right.
are, to the point, will create. And also, should you want, you can create. So but those are not happening with the older technology. They are happening with eBPF. They are happening with, the other kind of technologies. So
Mm-hmm.
um whether you have a security observability on layer 7 or kernel level, or so those kind of things, and all of these are part of observability only. So you'll see one domain is coming up as API security in production,
Right.
API security observability in production. Uh, in test and development, it used to be there anyway.
Mm.
And then runtime security. All of these are observability extensions only. So
Correct.
vendors are experimenting towards this to create a lot more meaningful information for their buyers. And because they understand now you will have to talk the language, or you will have to solve a problem. You can't just
Mhm.
push your platform, right? So they are now looking at, okay, you have a security problem. I only provide you security. You don't want to buy, APM or full stack from me. This is okay. So that way it is a lot more, centric. But I think these two approaches are also targeted towards a different type of customers. Some customers are large to, and they need more unification.
Right.
But then there are quite a few customers who are, they are digital native, for example, or fully cloud. What will you do there with your, NMS and those kind of tools? So you just need, specific security, runtime executions, maybe BPF can help only on understanding part-to-part communications, etc., will do. So I think the preferences are changing because of these, and so the vendors are changing, and the evolutions are also happening. But I see a lot of scope on both of these, and I think these will continue to evolve in both pockets. It's just that the focus of the vendors are different.
Right.
Also, there are personas of buyers as well, right? Right. So some of these vendors target different personas, and hence. But one thing I'm very, very clear that the time for larger. So I don't think the future will be based on how big is your observability product, how many customers you have got in full stack observability. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
Now this technology is getting democratized so much that everyone has the equal playing field.
Very true. Very true. Very, very true. So, while this is whole thing is evolving, right? I also wanted your view in terms of if we obviously this whole thing is evolving, but if you put the mix of AI or Gen AI, right? What sort of thing you believe, or if you have any specific use cases you believe Gen AI or AI will actually be able to use full for? Can you talk about some of these things which is happening?
Yes. So some of that, and I'm guessing that you guys are also working towards that. See, because you have a massive data, one thing that you will always have to do is about understanding the pattern,
Right.
of the data, right? So from the AI standpoint, because of the volume and you want to make sense out of that data, you will have to rely upon AI algorithms and engines and models to understand what patterns are coming in, and that will lead you to make it much quicker. What we call it, RCA. Either you do it through correlations or you do it through causation.
Right.
And one has to continue evolving these models. But this cannot be an independent thought process and run, another GPU to just do this stuff. It has to be ongoing, even if it is in fraction. I think the important thing here is about the cost and speed, is not about so much of quality. Because it's okay to have one causation wrong or one correlation wrong. But it does not make sense that for one causation correlation, you are paying hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars just to make one inference of that.
Right.
So AI side, I think these are the areas on observability which will continue to work. There is one area that I'm particularly very, very excited and I'm kind of working on. Bharat, is towards on the GenAI use case, by the way. And you can have multiple GenAI use cases. Just having a chat bot asking, what is my top 10 and top, I mean, those are just, I don't know if vanity way of doing this.
Right.
Here is one thing that I think I find it really useful. So every single place I go to the customer environment, by the way, even if I do, all that, and because every environment is very, very different, the instrumentation is different, applications are different. When the data starts coming into the collector, there are, especially in the open architectures, something or the other goes wrong. Yeah. So I think what next evolution has to happen, and something I'm working on right now, is AI-based listener, which can understand what data and what type of data is coming in. And can I spin off a profile or adapter or a transformer or a collector itself, which can ingest the data on the fly?
Okay.
Yeah. That will lead to a massive shift left movement in observability. Because in my opinion, most of the CTOs and engineering leaders don't build the telemetry in their application because they fear that even if they build, it can't be consumed by the vendors, collectors straight away. I think something that you can do is on consumption side of it, from this telemetry consumption, and that can it can help generate a new specification for collector itself.
So
The other side is,
just
sorry,
a
please.
question on that. What you're trying to say is that it will try understanding what type of data is coming in and then process it, right? That's what you're. That can be very, very useful.
Build a new collector, build a transformer.
Right. This is really very, very useful, actually. Okay. Yeah. Please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The other one is on a consumption side. Do you seriously believe, and I'm just thinking about it, and I've been thinking about it for a few years now,
Right.
that who really sits they are just to keep monitoring what is going wrong on the dashboard.
Right.
Right? Doesn't make sense.
Correct.
And if you configure your incident, there are always chances of missing one or the other. Other is that there are so many dashboards already. How can I consume? Then there are automation tools as well. So you have observability data. It is being consumed by multiple different ways. There are business users, and at least in your case, I know there are business users who consume that data.
Right.
Then there are IT ops, right? Then there are leadership, IT leadership. And in some customers, I know these data go into board meetings also.
Yes.
And by the way, in government, I was working with one of the customers. He said PMO dashboard also has some observability data. I don't know if it was systems observability or yeah. But my point is that consumption of that data also is a pain. Okay, you set APIs only set way of taking that data. Why can't Chat GPT or let's say your own GPT models allow you to just define a specification? It creates API on the fly, give it to you, deploy it, host it, give it to you, secure it, all different stuff. So both side of the large language based models can work, and in between, in my opinion, only the standard AI models will be required. I don't think you will require too much of re-engineering or forecasting what will go wrong in 2026 if I continue doing that stuff. So again, same is a different thought process. But if you really want to make it proactive from users to adopt it. Make it proactive from users to be able to build telemetry, or your engineers to be build telemetry, in your code base itself, rather than just, CIO thinking that what will go wrong next week if my sale starts.
Very true. Very true. So I think I really like the first one which you talked about. That will solve a massive problem, like you said, right? That how do because I just can't send data. I will have to do a lot of configuration, a lot of things to make something work, right? So that will be very very interesting to see. Whenever you are done, please do show it to us as well. It will work, right? That is a very interesting thing. Uh, I just want to talk about a little bit of use case, what we were thinking from the GenAI perspective, and just see if this will be something which will be useful. So what we were thinking is that there is a lot of observability data available, right? And then we have already have AI models to do some sort of correlation, contextualization, add this business part to it, and then maybe give a sort of RCA. If there is a lead indicator lagging, or if there is a problem happening in terms of either failures are happening more, or the transactions are taking more time and so on, right? So you get a root cause analysis. Now, this root cause analysis can never be, okay, this is the root cause, right? It is always probable, because
Correct.
you may not even have the data because of which the problem is happening, right? So you will come up with certain probable root causes. And uh, the extension to this is the root cause is known. Now, how do I resolve this? So we are looking at, I mean, in fact, the work has happened to a large extent. We are looking at sort of bringing in recommendability into the system, in terms of, okay, this root cause has happened, and this root cause is maybe, let's say, a service is taking more CPU, or a database is having deadlock, or a user log, or a let's say WebLogic, or any middleware is having some sort of hunt threads and so on, right? And then the recommendability will basically recommend action in terms of, for this type of issue, these are the recommended action, right? And then maybe, like you talked about the AIOps part, if we can grid some sort of get some sort of automation script for each of those recommendability, we can actually let people run, okay, I want to do this recommendation right then and there, right? So that sort of thing is what we were working on, and I think it will get into beta very soon now.
Yeah. So now, of course, this is the need of the hour. I'll tell you, and as per some statistics, I think this is chaos engineering statistics somewhere. that 98 or 99% of the severity 1 issues or severity 0 issues do not see the RCA ever. You're so busy into this, right? And some data is available. It is somewhere in 90s. I may be wrong on 98, 99%, maybe in 92, 95%, whatever. But that's a big number. That's a massive number.
Right.
So the only way you can solve it is by using AI. And if you do not know what has caused it, or if you don't have the RCA, you can't really fix it, right? Because the issues are so intermittent. So, and that is where I think AI can definitely help. So kudos to you guys. I think this part is really bang on.
Right.
My only worry that I have here, see, use the right trainable models and, right, whether it is large language models or short language models or small language models, or use RAG based or those methods.
Right.
Generating the next action is trickier.
Right.
It has a lot of context to it. Okay. So how it is configured and can you really straight take it to automation? I think it needs some time.
Definitely.
Yeah, because even today also, even if I mean, no brainer, everyone knows this, you do Copilot with your codes and still look at the Copilot code and maybe 50-60% times it is correct, whatever it is suggesting, not more than that. That too is just a smaller context.
Yeah.
Talking about here, the bigger context, you don't have as much data. You will not. So the practicality of recommendation is something that I will be wary of right now, but I think it will mature.
Right.
From a thought process standpoint, I think you're bang on to this. And that's what I was also explaining, right? You should be able to generate those stuff.
Right.
But the only problem is that if you want to generate it, there are a lot of variables to it. And the other area that I think, and I was explaining this to somebody else also, the AI hype that we have right now, the LLM hype that we have right now, and the investment that every company is making, they're still looking for a right right use case for that, for those investments. So I think it will get sucked up into that. This recommendation engine probably will get sucked up into that. So they can probably take this. And so as a thought process, I understand this, but as an independent product or tool, how much viability it will have, especially given that all organizations now have a chief AI officer and those kind of profiles who are responsible for AI initiatives, they want to probably consume this side of it. And that is where I'm slightly wary of. This is my genuine feedback. But then I think we only, as observability product people, only understand what data it is and how it makes sense.
Right.
So at least from that perspective on correlation, causation, providing you the RCA, those kind of stuff, they're bang on to this.
Right. No, thank you so much for that genuine feedback. I mean, we all know the accuracy you get through AI, right? And the iteration required, the training required, and then sort of supervised learning required to really reach to that place where things will be.
So what I'm trying to say, that don't bring something that will create another fatigue. It's like few years of learning and then say, oh my God, this is just giving me only so much.
Yeah.
So because the domain is very narrow, right? So the outcome for you to do this, for example, if something goes wrong in Kubernetes world, you just restart the pod.
Correct.
Right? That is already automated. So the world is moving towards already, and then there are AI on that as well. So a lot of that is already being taken care. But what is not done, and I think it must be done, and it has a merit, is about the RCA part of it. Building that up, creating meaningful information so that customers can consume. I think 70-80% what you said is already there, bang on. Try, maybe I'm just living in old world. Maybe maybe customers will like it. I don't know the outcome, what you're talking about in a recommendation side of it. Recommendation is okay. I'm saying automation. Up till recommendation is okay. Just the automation I'm wary of.
Right.
Because that can go haywire. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just right now, I would want to pause it here to give it a space for AI to mature, to data to come, and then probably take that journey to up to recommendation. I think your use cases are pretty valid.
Now, I want to talk about a bit future. So, if we were to ask you, like, what would be top 3 observability trends you see in 2025 and going forward or going beyond 2025, what would those be?
Seriously, one is adoption of open source. I think that is coming up. Open standards. What I mean,
Right.
open source has got so much of meaning. So I'll say open standards.
Right.
I think it just has to happen now. There is no way you can avoid it.
Correct.
The other is finding those non-intrusive, lightweight methods of capturing the data, whether eBPF is, some of these are open standard, still not fully open standard, but yeah. But moving towards more and more lightweight programs, capture, lesser information, and then absolutely about more and more solution oriented problem, addressing the problem. I think it's gonna go surgical now.
Okay.
It has been wide enough for a long time. Focused. So customers would start looking for solving. And I've seen, by the way, a lot of large customers who were paying a lot of money to biggies, by the way, millions of dollars, have started looking for a smaller vendor, smaller problem, and then they reduce the scope of a larger vendor and say only few things, and then smaller pieces. Of course, they reduce their burden,
right,
in terms of their spendings, and then they kind of have created their solution oriented. It's not only burning all the money.
Right. Okay, cool. This is pretty interesting. We are towards the end of the podcast, and the question which we generally ask almost every guest about their favorite book, something which basically they always go back to, or something which they gift to people, something which they always recommend.
By the way, I just gifted what this question is. I have several favorite books, by the way. My ex-boss used to gift me a lot, and there are quite a few books. And there are quite a few. With the recent one, the one that I have gifted to people was Mindset.
Okay.
As a Carol Dweck book. I love the book is because it challenges your mindset. It allows you to be present and have in your psychology become more mindful.
Okay.
And practice in a business sense. Essentially, build the mindset, the one that you want. And there is another one which I love it, and a lot of time if you would have seen this book. I forget the name of the writer also, by the way, or author is. It's called Extreme Ownership. It's written by a Navy SEAL.
Correct.
Yeah, I gift that book to quite a few people, but I love that book as well. I'm a salesperson, right? So it's just it naturally comes to a salesperson to take the ownership, has to own things from building that up to delivering and standing to your commitment. And I think I love that book for the context it is, owning what you or in a way preaching what you believe, or doing what you standing for what you believe. Yeah,
right. I have heard about both the books, but both are in my reading list. I have not reached there.
Mindset is a really quick reading, by the way, very, very quick read. I keep gifting that to a lot of people. It's a small book. I think it must be about couple of 100 pages, and
Okay.
maybe a couple of days read. It's very easy going, but I think it challenges you to think about psychology of building right mindset. Because in our type of jobs and corporate, and there's a lot of points for one to just slow down and start doubting yourself and start thinking too much.
Right.
This allows you to stay focused and stay on, or build a mindset which allows you to get going,
Right.
or aim for what you want to do.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much, Amit, for your time, insights, and amazing, thought-provoking view into observability. I am sure that we would definitely want to host you again sometime because of the way the whole observability domain is changing, and so much to learn from you, right? So, thank you so much for your time this time, and
No problem.
definitely been.
It was all my pleasure. As I said, you also need to talk that language, right? This is a TCP connection, so you'll have to acknowledge that what I'm sending to you. If you don't, then but this was an interesting world. Unfortunately, very few whom you can talk to about this.
Right.
So this side of the world where you have to manage, maintain, make it reliable
Right.
is something is evolving, as I said, and I would love to again come back on your show or in person, etc. We'll connect on this topic whenever you feel appropriate.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Bharat. Thank you for hosting.
Hope you found my discussion with Amit insightful. If you did, please consider sharing it with your colleagues. For more information about VuNet systems, please visit us at www.vunetsystems.com. Thank you.